Okay, we're starting the third year in Hilchos Gitin, continuing in Siman Kuf Chof, another Yesodis Sugya which is discussed in Sa'if Dalad, and that is essentially a Sugya which is called אומר, אמרו. Since you learned it last week, so we'll go discuss through it. The biggest part of the shir will be, so to speak, an introduction, a summary of the shittas about it, because we want to end coming to the shitta of the Alter Rebbe and the shitta of the Tzemach Tzedek. So if you have your white books handy, good. If not, get them at some point throughout the shir. Or you can go get them now. This Sa'if Dalad, focuses on the minui of the husband to the sofer and to the edim. And the mechaber starts with a rule that a sofer cannot write and the edim cannot sign until they hear from the husband directly a appointment. He appoints them to write and to sign. And the Rama adds, based on the Seder Aget, that l'chatchila he should say the minui to the sofer in front of the edim. Now, if the husband tells a bezdin, you guys tenu get leishti, you give a get to my wife, the bezdin cannot tell the sofer to write and the edim to sign. That's what the mechaber says. And even if the baal, if the husband tells the bezdin imru la sofer, tell the sofer to write and the edim to sign, they still cannot do it until they hear it directly from the husband. And the Ramah says, if he did a get bepoyel, the get was given to the wife, a get of imru, then she's safek megurashes. That is what the Shulchan Aruch writes. This comes out of two sugyas in Gemara, which in turn creates a major, is a machlekas harishonim, and machlekas in the achronim, noisekelim, how to understand this machlekas harishonim. The Mittler Rebbe summarizes pretty much the shitta of the Beis Yosef, or rewrites it in an easier way to understand it, and we're going to go follow through the way the Mittler Rebbe explains it in Piskei Dinim. Is it easier to push it, easier to read? There is a sugya in Gemara, in Daf Samach Vav Amud Aleph Maseches Gitin, is a Mishnah that if one person tells, the husband goes over to two people and tells them, Tnu get leishti, just tenu get leish, give a get to my wife, or he goes over to three people and he tells them kisvu utnu get leish, write and give a get to my wife, then you could write and you could sign. That is what the Mishnah says, even though he did not say to the two kisvu, he just told them tenu. And if he turns to three, which is like a bezdin, and he tells them give a get to my wife, and he did not say kisvu, he just says nuget leishti, then Reb Meir says that they could appoint other people to write, and Rabbi Yossi says that they have to learn how to write and write it themselves, because he told them to know. Shmuel, the Gemara explains right away, Shmuel says halacha Rabbi Yossi, and the reason why Rabbi Yossi says that you cannot do it is because of a klal mili lemimsirin l'shliach. He paskins that you cannot transfer a statement to a shliach. That means a shliach is in the same state in the stead of the person who gave him that appointment. If somebody appoints a shliach to deliver something, shulcha shel adam k'maaseh. If somebody tells somebody to do something, and then that person cannot go weiter and say to somebody else, because the words cannot be taken and transferred from one shliach to another person, and therefore when he tells the bezdin tenu get leishti, they cannot go and appoint somebody else to give the get, and which is different than the actual get, because the actual get, when it's a piece of paper that you could give to a get, could give to a shliach to give to somebody else, and the shliach could make another shliach, etc. Then the Gemara continues and says that Rabbi Yossi was oiser in two situations. If he said imru, that's one of the isurim of Rabbi Yossi, that if he says imru, if he tells the three, you guys tell somebody else, tell a sofer and edim to write, or if he tells three, tnu get leishti, doesn't tell them kisvu, and in both of them Rabbi Yossi passes it, and Shmuel, the Gemara says Shmuel disagrees On Rabbi Yosi, in the din of Amro, that seems like Shmuel holds that it's fine. That's in Daf Samach Vav Amud Aleph. In Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis, there's another sugya. In the case of Amro, he disagrees with Rabbi Yosi. In Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis, another sugya which is relevant to this, because this is where Rabbi Yosi comes in again, that if people come to a husband and tell him, let us write a get for your wife, and he says, Kisvu, go ahead, do it. And they then turn and go to a Sefer and to an Eidim. They were told Kisvu, and they went to a Sefer and to Eidim and told them, you write and you guys sign. The get is bottle, the Gemara says. Until the husband tells the Sefer and the Eidim straight up, write and sign. And the Gemara says over there that the end of the Mishnah, that the get is bottle until, or the Braisa, the get is bottle until you tell the Sefer and the Eidim, until the husband tells the Sefer and the Eidim to write and to sign, that is according to Rabbi Yosi. But the first half of the Mishnah, that's not according to Rabbi Yosi. Rav Ashi says, no, the whole thing is according to Rabbi Yosi. Even if he just says Tenu, and he does not say Kisvu, and even if he tells 3 people, Amro, to go ahead and tell, even if he tells 3 people a Bezdin, Tnu, it doesn't say Kisvu. Or he says Amro, and all of these, the get is bottle. The Rif takes it lahalacha, that if he says Amro, the get is pasul. Now, I mentioned in the past, the very big difference between saying the word bottle and the word pasul. Get bottle means midar. I said it's bottle. Get pasul means that midarabanan, it's pasul. The Rif says pasul. And that's how the Beis Yosef quotes him. Other people quote the Rif as saying bottle. The Ramban comes and asks a question on this. The Ramban and the Sugya. This is the Ikra Shittus over here is the Rif, Ramban, Ran, and Re'ah. The Ramban asks, why is it possible by Omer Imru? You're not giving any words to the Shliach. You're not giving mili. It's mili l'mimsim l'shliach. You're not doing mili over here. You're telling this. You're essentially appointing a Sefer and Eidim in front of somebody else. Shalei b'fneim. You're going in front of 2 Eidim or in front of Bezdin and telling them, I'm appointing a Sefer and Eidim somewhere else. So it's not a mili l'mimsim l'shliach. He did an actual appointment. It wasn't b'fneim. And the Ramban then continues and says, and you can't say that according to Rabbi Yosi, that it's only possible, the Amru is only possible when he says Amru without specifying, and then they go and choose their own Sefer and their own Eidim. But if there's a Sefer and but if he appoints specifically which Sefer and which Eidim is kosher, it's still you can't say that's what it is. Why? Because we have a chashash. Yetzim is a churva. What's the churva that's going to come out of it? If you're going to appoint a Sefer just to write, and 2 Eidim just to sign, you're going to tell somebody, go tell them to do it, then he's going to be embarrassed to tell the Sefer, you're only writing. You're sachakal a typewriter. And the other 2 Eidim are the ones that actually are actually having some kind of effect on the get. So therefore, we must say that Omer Imru, it's possible, even whether he doesn't say anything, whether he just says Imru, the Sefer, or he tells them, tell the Sefer to choose a Sefer and an Eidim, or he tells them, tell this Sefer and this Eidim, according to Ramban, all 3 are possible. That's how he understands the Gemara. And therefore the question is, why is it possible? It's not mitzvah milu l'mimsim l'shliach, because he said it. He said the Sefer and the Eidim, it's a minu shlo b'fneim. And the Ramban then explains that indeed whether mili l'mimsim l'shliach or yes, it's not really the relevant part of this discussion. Over here, by a get, the Ramban, the way they understand the Ramban is that you have v'kosav. You have to have ksiva. And the ksiva has to be done b'shas shlichas habal. And therefore, and also has to be done l'shma. And therefore, to be able for the Sefer and the Eidim to actually be a shluchei of the Baal, and to write and to sign l'shma, they have to hear it directly from the husband. And to appoint them shalei b'fneim doesn't work.
You know that the content has to be either him or a shliach.
Yes. And that's the Ramban over there. There's a different Chidush Ramban, which is where it's mashma farkert, and that's what the Mittler Rebbe mentioned in Sif Aleph, and what the Alter Rebbe discusses, I think, in this tshuva that we're going to discuss. The Rameh asks a question on the Ramban. He says, if you hold that Rabbi Yossi says that even when you appoint somebody with his name, the get is still possible because of the shaila of Lishma, and not because of Milul Mimsin and L'Shliach, we have a problem with the Gemara, because the Gemara clearly says that the reason of Rabbi Yossi is because Milul Mimsin and L'Shliach. So therefore, you're trying to make a new answer, explain the Gemara differently, but the Gemara says Milul Mimsin and L'Shliach. So must be that there is some element of Mili over here. It's not just the element of Lishma. And that's the question of the Rameh. And the Ran answers the question. And he says as follows. If you hold Mili Mimsir and L'Shliach, and Shlucha Shel Adam K'moisai, so then you don't have a problem, even by Omer Imru. And whoever hears from the Shliach is the same as hearing directly from the husband, and then you don't have a shayla of Lishma, and you don't have a shayla of a Kosav. And therefore, we must say that regardless of it, you still have to say that Rabbi Yossi holds Milu Mimsir and the Shliach. Because if Rabbi Yossi would hold that Milu Mimsir and the Shliach, you would not be able to, that Milu Mimsir and the Shliach, you would not have a problem by Omer Imru. Take Omer Imru doesn't work mitzad Lishma, technically, but if you have Milu Mimsir and the Shliach, then there's no more Omer Imru. It's Shulcha Shalom K'moisa, and it's as if he's hearing directly from the husband, so it's fine. And the Ran says that it makes more sense to follow the shit of the Rameh who asks on the Ramban, and therefore, what does that mean? According to the Ran, that Rabbi Yossi is only Poisel Imru when he does not specify the name of the people. When he just says, Imru l'Sefer v'le'edim, get a Sefer and get Edim. And they have a right midaitam, that they're going to go from their own understanding and go choose who the Sefer and who the Edim should be. But if they make an appointment, befeirush, tell this guy, and tell that to sign, and tell those two, to tell this guy to write, and tell those two to sign, then it works. And then there's the discussion later in the Poskim is whether it has to be an actual ani memane, imru lahem ani memane, or imru lahem sheyichtavu v'sheyachtemu. That's really different. That goes. These are going to discuss later. Yeah, but he says that therefore, when he specifies, when is puzzle so far. There is an element of Lishma, because they're writing it L'Shem Abal and L'Shem Aisha. But you don't need specifically to hear from the husband when he appoints specifically the Sefer and the Edim that he tells you to do it for them. He'll pass, the guy who transfers it will pass the message of who the husband and who the wife is, and that will be fine. So the way the Mittler Rebbe understands it over here is that according to the Rameh and the Ran, if the husband says to the two people or three people in front of him, Imru, tell Sefer Pliny and Edim, and tell Sefer Pliny and Pliny to write a get, and I appoint Ani Memane to Edim to sign, it's kosher. And if he says that just tell them to write and tell him to write and tell them to sign, doesn't say Ani Memane, then it's pasul midrabanan, but it's not batul midiraisa. But according to the Ramban, it's batul midiraisa whether he says Ani Memane, where he says Pliny ben Pliny, Upliny ben Pliny yichtuv yachtem, or Pliny ben Pliny yichtev Ani Memane, Pliny ben Pliny lachtem, or Imru Midaitachem, etc., is why? Because the Ramban holds, it seems like the Ramban holds in Midiraisa, you have to hear directly from the husband, so that way there could be the proper V'kosav and the proper Lishma. And it seems like the Rosh and the Rashba hold the same way as the Ramban. The Rambam says similar to the Ramban, but he says get pasul, not get batul. It says get pasul, the karivli is get batul. It's close to be a get batul, but it's not a get batul for sure. Sorry, I mentioned before that I made a mistake, I mixed up. When I mentioned before that Rameh, it's the Re'ah, not the Rameh. The Re'ah is the one that explains that asks the question, and the Ran says you pass like the Re'ah. The Rameh holds like the Rashba. So just you can correct it in your notebooks. So the Re'ah is the one. The Re'ah is the one who was the same as the Ran. The shit of the Re'ah, shit of the Re'ah and the Ran. The Rameh and the Mordechai and the Smak all hold the same as the Rambam, that it's pasul, not batul, but it's karivli is batul, and therefore she is safek megureshes, and that's how the Rama paskins. The Rosh paskins like the Rif. The Rosh explaining the Rif and the Rambam holds that it's batul, it's not a get b'chlal. That's how the Rosh understands the Rif and the Rambam. Now, what the Ran and the Re'ah both say that it's possible in a scenario where you're not memana the Eidim specifically, and it's not batul. And when he says Imru, and he specifies the names of them, and he says ani memana and everything else is kosher, the Beis Yosef says it's lahalacha v'lo lemaisa. And it is be'etzem we paskin that it's possible. And the Darkei Moshe brings from the Radach also that it's lahalacha v'lo lemaisa. The Beis Yosef also understands that when the Rambam says that, and the Beis Yosef obviously understood that the Rambam holds that it's mamish pasul, but not at all batul, and that's how it looks in the Mechaber, the way it was written, and the Ramah is the one that seems like he holds that he follows that it's a suffix, but that's suffix megureshes because maybe pasul, maybe karev lebatul. Otherwise, if it will be pasul, the Ramah just says to get pasul. Wouldn't say suffix megureshes, suffix deraisa. The Rambam, yeah. This is all pretty much the Rishonim, the way the Beis Yosef explains them. Comes the Beis Shmuel and Sifkot and Zayin. The way he understands over here, this is the way he paskins the Sugya as follows. If the husband tells Bezdin to get leishti, and they go and they tell a Sefer and they tell the Eidim to sign, the get is bottle. Why? Because that is mili. And mili lemem siran l'shliach, and you can't transfer words from one shliach to another. But if he tells the Bezdin, kisvu get leishti, and the Bezdin, imru, he tells Bezdin, tu get leishti, doesn't say imru, and they don't appoint anybody else, but they themselves sit and write the get. One of them writes the get. And then they appoint Eidim to sign the get, then the get is pasul, but not batul. The appointment of the Eidim is less. We're soon going later towards the end of the year, we're going to see why it's pasul, why by Eidim it's less of an issue. Now, if the husband tells two people, not a bezin, tells two people, you guys go write, and then they appointed somebody to write, but they went and they signed it themselves, so that means he told them kisvu, and they didn't do the kisvu. All they did was they did the chismu, the chasima, but they got somebody else to write. Then it's a bad lo ifshet b'gemara. It's a suffix in Gemara. It's a suffix whether the get is batul or whether the get is pasul. Why? Because it's a shaila when he tells them kisvu, he's telling them to write specifically, or when he says kisvu, it means that they should sign. And if he tells them, when he tells them kisvu, because he tells two people, he means that they should sign, then be'etzem midiraisa it's kosher, because they fulfilled his appointment. The only thing is that becomes into Omer Imru, and therefore it becomes a shaila of pasul. By Yachasima Imru, by Yachasima is pasul, not batul. That's how the Beis Shmuel understands it, and he says that be'etzem the Ramah held the same way. Why? Because if you look in the words of the Ramah ends, Avar v'girshal yidei Omer Imru l'soiver v'yichtov have a suffix megureshes. When does the Ramah say suffix megureshes? When he says Omer Imru l'soiver lichtov. When the husband tells the sofer to write. That means the writing is when it's a shaila of get batul. But Le'inyan doesn't say that if he tells the Eidim to sign, it becomes batal. Over there, the Rama doesn't mention Sofek Megureshes. Why? Because we're telling the Eidim to sign, by Chsime, Omer Imru, is only a Shayla of Pasal and not batal. If the husband tells the Bishmuk, then continues and says, if the husband tells the people, Imru la Sofer, tell the Sofer in my name to write. So according to the Ran and the Ra, it's kosher. Why? Because that person was appointed as Shliach HaBaal, Shalai B'fanav. According to the Ramban, the get is batal midiraisa, because there's no v'kasav unless they hear directly from him. Because the Ramban holds that you need shlichus mamash and ksiva. And the Beis Shmuel then continues again over here, the same thing in the beginning of the Siman, to explain why, according to Taisvis, why you don't need shlichus b'ksiva. That v'kasav is only a din in lishma. Shtas Taisvis. And therefore he says that it's only possible and not batal. The only issue that when it's a shayla of Omer Imru, you can't say that it's batal, because the only din to say that it's batal is only based on v'kasav. If you say v'kasav is shlichus, then there's no v'kasav, it's batal. But if you say that v'kasav is not shlichus, only din lishma, then you have the issue of Omer Imru, that only makes it possible and not batal. And the Bishmul concludes over there that the Rosh holds like the Ramban. And now you're going to have a question that the Rosh holds, and this was quoted by the Tur in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, that when a person says Imru over there, it's not a din of, it's not, there's no issue of Milul Mimsran L'Shliach by Omer Imru. The Bishmul says that's because the Rosh holds like the Ramban, that the main issue is not because of Milul Mimsran L'Shliach, the main issue is because there's no V'kasav, there's no Shlichus. So therefore, when he says there's no issue of Milul Mimsrin by Omer Imru, maybe Taka the Rosh Taka holds that Milul Mimsrin l'shliach. By Mominus he might work. But Mitzad V'kosav, you don't have the issue of, if you don't have the issue of V'kosav, the get is completely batal. That's how the Bishmul explains it. The Chalkas Mechoikin Sifkot Nid Beis says, according to Mechaber, Omer Imru, and he appoints them. He says, Ani Memanes Ploini Ben Ploini, in front of the Eidim. And he says the names of them. According to the Mechaber, it will still be possible. The get will still be possible. Because they have to hear directly from the husband. But in any other part of the get, whether the wife appointing a Shliach LeKabbalah, for example, it's mutter to be appointed Shliach Shalei B'fanav. That's why a woman, later on in Shulchan Aruch, you can see that the point of Shliach LeKabbalah, a woman doesn't have to be in the same place as Shliach LeKabbalah. She can go in front of a Bezdin in Eretz Yisrael and say, I appoint Ploini Ben Ploini in California to be my Shliach LeKabbalah, and it works. Makuli Alma, almost everybody. And he says that the Mechaber paskins like the Ramban. And then he says, but the Ran and the Ra'ah disagree on the Ramban. And when is it possible according to the Ran and the Ra'ah, the way the Chalkas Mechaykak explains it? When the husband says Imru and he doesn't tell them any names. He tells them Imru, and you guys go and choose who the Sefer should be and who the Eidim should be. He gives them the right to make the decision. Because then there's a chashash churva that they're going to go and not want to tell the Sefer that he can't sign, and then it's going to end up being that the Sefer is going to be one of the signatories, and one of the Eidim is going to sign together with him. It's going to be a shayla of chosam Sefer ve'ed, which is a different sugya. We're not going to get into it now. But if he appoints them specifically with their names, and he tells them in front of the Eidim, he tells them, I am appointing Ploini Ben Ploini. Tell this guy that I'm appointing him as my shliach, as I'm appointing him to write the get. And tell those two that I'm appointing them to sign the get. And it still works. According to the Ran and the Ra'ah, it still works. And the Radach says that this is lahalacha v'loi l'maisa. That's why he brings the Radach says lahalacha v'loi l'maisa. But according to the Ran and the Ra'ah, if you appoint them, if you make a minui in front of shaloi b'fneihem with their names, it works. The Taz has a very, very long explanation over here. The Taz begins by saying, there's a lot of shittas how to understand the sugya. And if I'm going to sit and summarize everything, it's going to be very long. So I'm going to write it very short. And then he writes, come out the full page, small letters. But that's in short. And he summarizes it. And he says that Trisha has an explanation, and the Prisha has an explanation, and my Shver, the Bach, also has an explanation. And he lists a bunch of questions on each one of those explanations. And then, at the end of the explanations, he says, now I'm going to explain to you how really the sugya should look. And this is the Taz writing B'Ktzareh, and the Pri Chodesh also writes B'Ktzareh, but it's 3 times as long as the Taz. You're going to see it. The Pri Chodesh starts on 1 page and goes till 3 pages later. It's a full page on the left side of the Shulchan Aruch. When the Taz begins his explanation, he begins with a question about Siman Kuf Mem Aleph. Then in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, the Tur writes that the din of Milul Mimsaran L'Shliach only applies when you give the Shliach something, you tell him to do something that he can't then go ahead and tell somebody else to do. Because that's Milul Mimsaran L'Shliach. That's how the Tur understands it. For example, he tells a person, I'm appointing, he goes over to Eidim and he tells him, I'm appointing you two to sign the get. And then, they can't go and transfer the appointment that they got to somebody else. But if he tells them, Amru, go tell the Eidim to sign, that's not Mil. He's telling them to do something, and they're actually going and doing what they told him to do. So what Milul Mimsaran L'Shliach is? That's what the Tur. That's how he understands the Tur in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph. And over here, the Tur writes that if he says Omer even in front of 3 people, Omer Ibrus, doesn't work. And the Taz says you can't say that in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph he's mentioning them he says Imru with the names, so it works according to the Ran and the Ra'ah. And over here, it doesn't work. And over here, it didn't mention the names. Because then the Tur over here shouldn't have written that it doesn't work, that's possible. He should have written that Omer Imru, it doesn't work unless you mention their names. But over here he writes it doesn't work b'chlal. And over there he writes, seems like he writes that it does work. So that's the first question that he has on the way the Tur understands it. Then he asks a question of the Bis Yosef, because the way we explained the Ran until now, the shit of the Bis Yosef, the way he understands the Ran is that if the husband says Imru l'Plainim ben Ploni to write the get, and to Plainim ben Ploni to sign the get as Eidim, then it's only possible because then it's possible only because there might be a churva coming out of it that the person who's in charge of transferring the appointment is not going to want to tell the sofer, you only write the get and you don't sign the get. But the Beis Yosef then continues and says that according to the Ran, if they tell the sofer to write, and then they taka went and told the sofer to write, that the get is possible. That's how the Beis Yosef explains the Ran. And the Taz says, the Drisha and the Prisha, if you're going to look at the Drisha and the Prisha, which is also a full long page explaining the Sugya, this quote that the Beis Yosef says in the name of the Ran doesn't exist in the Ran. Doesn't exist in the Ran b'chlal, the whole issue of Mimsaran, and therefore you can't say that the get is possible, because the get is possible only if you're able to prove that Midaraisa would be kosher and the Chachamim made Gzeira. The way the Beis Yosef explained the Ran is that if he doesn't specify the names of the people, and then they go and they do it themselves, it's possible. But why would it be possible? The chayra should be batal, according to them. That's the question of Drish and the Prisha. So he has a question of Beis Yosef. Then he brings what the Bach says. The Bach says, Taka says, the Beis Yosef is right. And when the husband says Omer Imru and specifies the name of the husband and specifies the name of the Eidim, the husband says Imru and specifies the name of the Sefer and specifies the name of the Eidim, then it's possible and not batal because it's no longer a shayla of mili. And the Taz says, and the Bach also didn't get it right, and he asked the question, because then it would be mamash kosher midrabanan. It's not going to be possible midrabanan. If he specifies the names, it shouldn't be possible b'chlal. If it's not a din of mili l'mimsar and l'shliach, why is it possible? Definitely not batal. Possible, there's no reason for it to be possible. It should be kosher. Why? Because it's mamash shluchas. If it's not mili, then it's mamash shluchas. If it's mamash shluchas, then everything should work. Not only according to the Ran, but according to everybody else also. But for sure, according to the Ra and the Ran. And therefore, the Taz has his own gang in this whole thing. And he says that the Ran, which is not the shit of the Ramban, not the shit of the Rosh, but the shit of the Ran, has three elements in it. Three different elements. If he says Imru, if the husband says Imru, but he doesn't specify what and to who. He says Imru l'soifer sheyichtav l'edim sheyachtemu. That means, and he tells them, you guys go choose who should be. So what is he doing? He's not giving them any shluchas, essentially. They go from their own accord and they choose what to do. So there is no shluchas over here. And that's mamash mil l'mimsar l'shliach. Because what he told them to do is not something they could transfer to somebody else. And therefore they get this batal midiraisa. That's how he understands the first thing, the Ran, according to the Taz, that's how it is. Second one, if he says Imru, and he doesn't tell them you're going to choose who the Sefer and the Eidim is going to be. He says, I'm going to choose who the Sefer and the Eidim are going to be. This should be the Sefer that you choose, and that should be the Eidim that you choose. Then it's mamash shluchas, because he tells them, go choose that guy, and go choose those two guys to sign, that guy to write, those two guys to sign. So therefore, midiraisa, it's for sure kosher, because it's not mili. And it's only possible midrabanan because the gzeira of the maybe the sefer is going to, maybe they're going to be embarrassed to tell the sefer not to sign. The sefer is going to sign also, and that's going to be an issue. Or a different or because they're going to feel that they have when he tells them, tell this guy and tell those guys, they're going to feel maybe we still have a power to change who it is. We can't find a sefer, we'll get a different sefer. But if the lashon of the minui is, I'm appointing Pliny ben Pliny as my shliach to write the get in front of you. I'm appointing Pliny ben Pliny and Pliny ben Pliny as my eidim to write the get, and I'm appointing them in front of you. That means, then it's mutter even midrabanan. Because then we know they're not going to change the shluchas. They can't change the shluchas. When he tells them, Imru, go and tell this guy, go and tell that guy, he gives them the names, they might feel they still have a chance to change it. But if he doesn't tell them that, he says, tell them that I'm appointing them, and I'm appointing them in front of you. And tell him that I'm appointing him to write, and I'm appointing him in front of you. At that point, the minui is much stronger. Because he's mamash memana people, it's just not b'shalei b'fneim. And that's what the Ran and the Ra hold, that minui, sofer, ve'edim, shalei b'fneim, if it's done in the form of a minui as their representatives, is kosher. And therefore, he says, based on that, whatever the Beis Yosef writes makes sense. Because if he tells them, Imru, Pliny, and he gives them the names, then it's kosher. The Beis Yosef it's kosher midiraisa. It's only possible midirabanan. That's what the Beis Yosef writes is possible. Why? Because there's no mili. Why is it possible midirabanan? Because you have the churva that could come out of it. The disaster could come out of it. It's not going to be the wrong person signing. And if he clearly says that he appoints them as shluchim, as he appoints them as his people, shaloi b'fneim, then the chayra should be kosher even midirabanan, based on the way the Beis Yosef, and that's how the Beis Yosef Taka writes, it's kosher even midirabanan. He only adds that's halacha v'lo l'maisa, but the way we explain the Ran now, the Ran and the Ra, it fits. And according to the Ramban, it's batal midiraisa in any form of indirect appointment. Why? Because they have to hear from his own mouth. And he says, and the Tur holds that even in the third level of the Ran, even in the third level of the Ran, that he tells, I'm appointing them, shalei b'fneim, it's also the shayla the yetzim is a churva. And then he quotes that the Marshal holds, the way the Marshal explains. And it's important because the Marshal, inside the Marshal, inside the Ramban, all these Rishonim, and also Pri Chodesh I'm going to say soon, are all quoted in the Alter Rebbe's Tshuva that's going to be towards the end of the Shir. So all this is still part of the introduction to Alter Rebbe's Shir. So you're getting a summary of the Sugis for the purpose of being able to understand the Shit of the Alter Rebbe B'mokim Igun in the Sugi of Omer Imru. The Marshal says that the Tur held that the Isser is not because of, the reason why the Tur was Machmer is because he held that the Isser is not because of Mili, L'mimser and L'shliach. Rather because the issue is Mitzad V'kosav, like the Ramban. And the Taz says, but that doesn't make sense, because he himself writes in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph that he writes himself in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph Faket. So therefore, it's clear, not like the Marshal, that the Tur is Poisel Mitzad V'kosav. We must say that the Tur holds it's not an issue of V'kosav, it's an issue of Milul Mimsar and L'shliach. And the reason why he's Poisel over here and he's Matir over there is because Taka there's no Mili. No issue of Mili. Over here you have the Chashash Yetzim as a Churva that's going to appoint them to, that somebody is going to sign instead of the right person. And for that we move to the Pri Chodesh. Pri Chodesh, I'm only going to say a few points from the Pri Chodesh, not the whole Pri Chodesh, because the whole Pri Chodesh will take a long time to say, to discuss every single point that he says. And the way the Pri Chodesh understands the Ramban, and the way he explains, he starts to also explain the Shittas HaRishonim. He says, the Shittas HaRamban is as follows. When you say Imru, you tell Imru, tell this guy to write, and tell those guys to sign. And he specifies who they are. That is Minui Shluchos. He is actually appointing them as his Shulchim. Elamai Shalei B'fneim. That means Be'etzim it should work. Mitzad Minui Shluchos it should work. Even by Omer Imru Stam, without specifying the names, and they go and they choose the Sefer and they choose the Eidim, it's still considered like they were appointed as his Shluchim based on his words Omer Imru. Both of them. Even the lowest level of Omer Imru, with the most latitude to the person who hears the Minui, who hears the Shluchos, it's still considered Minui Shluchos Shalei B'fneim. So, the way that Ramban understands the Minui Shluchos, all the Minui Shluchos Shalei B'fneim, if you would apply that to the Ra and the Ran, it would work perfectly. It would all be kosher. Elamai, the Ramban understands that according to Rabbi Yossi, you can't appoint a Shliach Shalei B'fneim. It doesn't work. Doesn't make a difference how many Lashonos you're going to say. According to Rabbi Yossi, Minui of a Sefer and the Eidim Shaloi B'fneim, even according to the highest level of Minui with their names, and even the lowest level of Minui without the names or anything else, doesn't work. Because they are not standing here in the stead of the husband. Shluch Shalom Kemoisa, yes, but they are not hearing from the husband himself, please write a get for my wife, and that is, then doesn't make a difference how it's going to be transferred to them. It doesn't make a difference he appoints them indirectly. Until they hear it with their own ears, it won't work. That's the shit of Rabbi Yossi. Shmuel says that it does work, the way he understands Shmuel, the way the Ramban understands Shmuel, it does work. And it's considered Mepi Abal, and there's no issue of Milul Mimsir and L'shliach. That's why Shmuel holds it by Omer Imru, it's fine. And then he continues and says, that's the shit of the Ramban. That's why the Ramban says it's all bottle. Never works. That it's shluchos, it is minu shluchos, it just doesn't work by a get. According to the Ra'ah and the Ran, when you say, the way he explains, the Pri Chodesh explains, even when the husband says Imru, and he says the names of the Sefer and the names of the Eidim, it's still considered Mili Mimsin and L'shliach, according to Rabbi Yossi. Why? Because when he says Imru, even though he says tell somebody else to write and somebody else to sign, he said it in front of three. What was his intention? His intention was, you guys go, and it's your job to appoint them. I'm asking you to appoint them. I'm asking you to appoint this guy to write and that guy to sign, because I want those people to. But at the end of the day, this is your minui. when he says Imru. So according to Rabbi Yosef, we puzzle. According to Shmuel, Imru, even a simple Imru is always a minui. It's not b'chlal considered milui, therefore it's not a problem. But he says, the Pri Chodesh says, if he tells them, Imru to Plainim and Plaini, that I'm appointing him to write, then it does work. Then that works. Because then, according to the Ra and the Ran, not according to the Ramban, according to the Ra and the Ran, that's the only way that the Minui Shlichus actually works, according to the Ra and the Ran. And he says that Beis Yosef clearly holds like the Ra and the Ran, and not like the Ramban. That's why the Beis Yosef says that that according to the Ra and the Ran, only the last level, when it says Ani Memane Eschem, it's the only time that the get is kosher, according to the Ra and the Ran. The other ones is pasul or batel. And he obviously does not hold like the Ramban that any form of Imru counts as a minui. Because if he would hold like the Ramban, any form counts like a minui, either he would hold it's batel, or he would hold that all three are kosher. So obviously he holds, because he makes a differentiation, obviously he holds like the Ra and the Ran. And obviously he holds that the minui will only apply in the last one, because the ikar is the minui according to Pri Chodesh. When is a get kosher? When is a proper minui? When is the get pasul or batel? When is a half-baked minui or no minui at all? But if it's a proper minui, then it's kosher, according to the Ra and the Ran. And according to the Ramban, it has nothing to do with minui. It has to do with lishma, with v'kosav. It has to hear it directly. That's how the Pri Chodesh explains this in short. That's how the Pri Chodesh explains the machlokes of the Ramban with the Ra and the Ran. After he asks a bunch of questions, everybody else's explanations. Then he says, but according to the Maharam al-Ashkar, he calls him the Ramah, Reish Mem Aleph, but it's not the Ramah, that we know, it's the Maharam al-Ashkar. The difference between the Ramban and the Ra and the Ran is when you say Imru, and he specifies the names, but doesn't specify a minui. That according to the Ra and the Ran, it's kosher. L'kuli alma. When he says Imru and specifies the names, without saying minui. Why? Because that is mamash a minui shloi b'fneim. Even though he doesn't say any maneh, that's still considered a minui shloi b'fneim. And that works. And according to the Ramban, it doesn't work. Why? Because there's a chisoron in the lishma. There's something in the lishma is not complete. Huh? The Ramban's batel. Why? Imru, regardless of what the Imru is going to contain, is similar to shlach lecha, l'daitacha. Yeah, it doesn't say the word shlach lecha, but that's it. Imru is the same thing as when Moshe Rabbeinu was told to send the meraglim. That even when he says Imru, tell Plainim and Plaini that I'm appointing him as a shliach, as a sofer, appointing him as a sofer, still, the halacha, she's still safek megureshes, like the Ramah. And if they went and they chose somebody else, he tells them, and these guys who heard it went and appointed somebody else, the get is completely batel. The Pischei Tshuva over here, Sifkot Yud Zayin, which tells you, go look in the Alter Rebbe, sheherich harbe bedin, it was very lengthy tshuva and this din of Imru, that in the Mokim Igun, it's kosher if the sofer who heard Imru was one of the people who was in the room when he heard the appointment of Imru. That means Imru would work in Mokim Igun in certain scenarios. What does Alter Rebbe write? So there's the two tshuvas of the Alter Rebbe, Siman Lamed Beis and Siman Lamed Gimel. Siman Lamed Beis is a very short tshuva, seems like a one page, and that's in page 73 in your book. And Siman Lamed Gimel is a lengthy tshuva, but it's not complete. It seems like they're missing the end of the tshuva. But to understand Siman Lamed Beis, first we go to Siman Lamed Gimel, which is on page 74, and that is the tshuva of the Alter Rebbe. The first tshuva of the Alter Rebbe we're going to be learning to understand the shitta of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe begins, and I'm not going to go through the whole truth of the Alter Rebbe either, just certain points of it. The Alter Rebbe begins by saying that the Marshal was makel completely in the din of Omer Imru if it's Mokim Egun. And the Marshal relied on the Shita of Ri in Taisvus. And the way the Rosh understood the Ri. That, because if you look in the Rosh, the way the Rosh understood the Ri, is that by Omer Imru they were machmir in such a get that she can't get married. But if it's a Mokim Egun, if she shouldn't get married. If she gets married, lo teitze. But in the Mokim of Chashash Egun, it's kosher even if she didn't get married yet. That's how the Rosh understands the Ri, and that's this pashtus lashon of the Ri. Now, we already learned prior in the Sif Aleph that there's a stira in the Ri in two different places. And then he says the Pri Chodosh got something wrong. One of the things that Pri Chodosh says, I didn't mention it before, is that the Rosh and the Ri both hold to be machmer. And the Alter Rebbe writes, Shgogo yotza malifnei Pri Chodosh. Pri Chodosh got it wrong, made a mistake in this. Why? Because if the Pri Chodosh would look at the Remozei HaTur, which is the summary of the Tur. Over there it's from the Tur, summarizing the Rosh Psakim, and it's in Kitzur Piskei Rosh Perik Tes Seifov, that according to the way the Rosh understood the Ri, that it is kosher for Mokim Egun, like we just mentioned before. The Ramban, who is machmir, also says that the Baal HaTosfos held that Omer Imru is kosher for Mokim Egun. The Ritva Paskin, that Omer Imru is kosher. The Rosh, who everybody quotes that he's machmir, is only machmir when the Sefer was one of the people who signed it, when Chasam Sefer Ve'ed. But Ri in Taisvus clearly says that it's kosher, even by Omer Imru. And even if you want to say that the Ri was machmir, because there's another place that you could be medayik from the Ri that he was machmir, it's a chumra be'alma, and that's what the Marshal says. So he says that clearly first we'll start that the shit of the Marshal is that it is completely to be made of Mokim Egun, and it's based on the shit of Ri, the way all these people understood the Ri. So he says, but you have the Smag, and the Rashba, and the Ran, who all say that Ri is Paisel, and by Omer Imru, because of a suffix. These guys all base themselves on Sefer HaTruma. And the Alter Rebbe says, there's many places you're going to find that the Sefer HaTruma and Tosfos themselves disagreed on how to understand Ri. Ein misnabim b'signan echad. Sefer HaTruma sometimes understood Ri differently in a bunch of places. And also within Baal HaTosfos you have sometimes that they quote Ri one way or they understood Ri differently. And one of the examples he brings is the example that we spoke about in Sa'if Aleph. Do you need Shluchas Aksivas Aget? For V'kosav. The Rosh writes in the name of Ri that you need Shluchas. That V'kosav means that the Ri holds that you do need Shluchas Aget. And if you look in Tosfos, Daf Tes Amud Beis, Taka, that's what it seems like. And therefore, a Chereshet of a cotton is possible even if a God lo Omed al Gabov. But in Sefer HaTruma says simply that it's kosher. And it's clear that Sefer HaTruma will not disagree on the Ri, was his Rebbe. And also in the Smag also understood the Ri that way that you don't need Shluchas. And if you look in Tosfos Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis, Taka, it says the same thing. The Ri holds it, you don't need Shluchas in the get. So therefore, if you're going to find a contradiction in the Ri, that some people understood the Ri one way, some people understood the Ri the other way, it's fine. And he says, it happens to be, you could follow those that understood the Ri one way, that fits together with the Marshal, that Omer Imru b'Mokim Egun is fine. Alter Rebbe then continues and says, even those who say that Omer Imru is possible. Misafek is only, they all hold it's only possible with the Rabbanon, not midiraisa. And then he goes and explains it at length until Erech page 79. And then he says, being that we have all these people that hold according that the Ri holds that it's kosher, and we have the shit of a Sefer HaTruma that holds that the Ri says it's possible, but only it says it's possible. It's clear that the Sefer HaTruma himself also held that it's only possible with the Rabbanan and not with the Raisa. So we have those that say it's mutter, and we have those that say it's possible, but only with the Rabbanan and not with the Raisa. And therefore, the Rosh and Taisus in the name of Ri are strong enough that you could rely on them that it's kosher, at least in a Mokim Igun, like the Marshal says. The Rif is Paisel. The Rif clearly writes that Omer Imru is Paisel. He says the Marshal didn't worry about what the Rif, why the Rif says. And the Alter Rebbe goes to the whole explanation why the Marshal did not worry about the Rif. You look at it yourself, you're going to see it. And Alter Rebbe then continues and brings a raya for the Shittas HaRif from other places in Shas. And by page 81, I'm quoting the page numbers in our white book, the Alter Rebbe then explains the mission over there. And on page 83, the Alter Rebbe starts his maskana. And the Alter Rebbe first starts by saying, everything I wrote is a pipula ba'alma, to explain what the Marshal says, why the Marshal holds it, but Mokim Igun, that Omer Imru and Mokim Igun is kosher. But ultimately, how can we go against the Mechaber? The Mechaber writes clearly that it doesn't work. And everybody follows the Mechaber, all the other people after the Mechaber, all follow the Mechaber that Omer Imru does not work. And the Ramah went further and said that it's Shishafik Megoreshes, because the Mechaber didn't write what happens if a get was written. The Ramah is the one who writes it. And therefore he says, just to go and say I'm relying on Marshal, and everybody understood Ri and Tais was that's Mamash Kosher, or at least like Marshal is Mokim Igun, that's too much. However, if you have another Svara together with it, then you could rely on the Marshal. So what's the additional Svara to be Mekel over here that Alter Rebbe writes? He says the person who wrote the get was one of the people who heard the Imru. That means the husband came and says Imru to write a get, and it was a Mokim Igun. And the one who actually sat and wrote the get was one of the people who heard the Minui of Imru. That then the Alter Rebbe says, at least according to Ramban, should be kosher. Why? He heard from the husband, Imru leploini sheyichtov. Yeah. But according to the Ramban, that doesn't work as a transferring, because according to the Ramban, the person has to actually hear it from the husband. So he heard only Imru, but he heard from the husband that it has to be written for him and Lishma. So therefore, if he didn't transfer the Imru further, and he actually went and did it himself, it works. And even more so according to the Rashba, because the Rashba says that the best kavan is when you hear directly from the husband. And over here, the Sofer heard it directly from the husband and wrote it Lishmoi, V'Lishma, and he said all the Lashonos and Seder Aget, and in case of gets L'Shem Bala Megarish, etc., etc. He did everything right.
This could even the guy who the Baal told directly, you know?
Yeah.
The Baal told, even the person with the Baal told, I tell him, go make a tell Seder write it, someone else hears it. Asking someone else to write it, or even the person that I tell directly?
The person that heard it. He says one of the people that heard it was the one that did it. And even according to the ones that it's Mamash Mili, the Minister and the Shliach, the husband Mili, over here the Sefer heard it directly from the husband. There's no Mili. What did the husband say when he says Imru? He says the three people who heard me should go and find somebody to do it. And so one of them found himself. People spend a lot of money to find themselves. So this guy found himself easily. And that is much better than a Sofer didn't hear anything from the Baal. He says, this Omer Imru that the husband heard from according to the Ramban will be much better than even a Minui according to the Ra and the Ran, a Minui Shliach Shalei Bifanov. But hearing Imru and then doing it yourself is much better. And then the Alter Rebbe goes to a whole different thing. He says everybody understands the Ramban to think that that's why everybody holds that the Ramban is so machmer, is because they hold that the Ramban holds it v'kosav is minu shlichus. You have to have a kosav, you have to have a shlichus. He says no, the Ramban does not hold that. The Ramban does not hold, changes the whole view of the Ramban. The Ramban does not hold that you need to have minui, that you have to have shlichus. And that is clearly written in Chidush Ramban to Gitin. The Bishmul understood the Ramban that he holds that v'kosav means that you have to have shlichus, because the Ramban didn't see the Chidush, because the Bishmul didn't see the Chidush Ramban on Gitin. If he would have seen the Chidush Ramban on Gitin, he wouldn't have said that the Ramban holds that he would not say that the Ramban holds that v'kosav means that you have to have a minui shlichus. He would hold it's also mitzad lishma. And that's where the tshuva of the Alter Rebbe ends. It's not finished. In the footnote it says that that's until where you have and it's finished. Yeah, pretty much is another thing that Alter Rebbe says over there, continues the whole discussion. If that you can't say that the kosav is din shlichus, because then v'nosan will also have shliach kabbalah, will also have to be midin shlichus mamash and hear it directly, and that's where the tshuva ends. But in Siman Lamed Beis, in page 73, which is a short tshuva, over there the Alter Rebbe very shortly writes, like it's starfus to the psak, that the get is kosher, and over there you have another line or two that, so to speak, the first part of the tshuva, the first few lines, summarizes the last 12 pages that are in the tshuva. And the last line is something added over there. He says you could rely on the Marshal in this scenario specifically because it's Mokimigun, and because there's somebody, the one who wrote it was the one who heard it directly from the husband. And over there, Kol HaPoislim, the Lashon is it Kol HaPoislim. All the people that possibly Emru will say that it's kosher. Because, like the Alter Rebbe doesn't explain it over here, but the Alter Rebbe explained it in the tshuva, because even those because everybody holds this midin shlichus. You have the Rashba that everybody, the Ramban that everybody hung their hat on that said that it's midin, the kosav is din shlichus. No, it's not. He explains that the Ramban clearly writes in the Chidushim, it's not so. And over here it's clearly the Shema, because he heard it from the husband. And then Alter Rebbe says, and by the way, I could also explain to you why even those who hold that you need shlichus would also be maskim that the get is kosher in this scenario by Omer Imru, even though he didn't say I'm appointing you as my shliach to write the get. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't explain it over here. And then towards the end, the Alter Rebbe adds, and this that the Eidim only signed mitam Imru, you could rely on it. This is still a tzad lahakol, because the Prisha writes in Siman Kuf Mem Aleph that signing get, the meaning of signing is only different seifrim. And therefore, by Omer Imru, the get would not be possible by Echsima. That's pretty much the tshuva of Siman Lamed Beis. From there, if you look in the footnotes, the editor, Rabbi 11, sends you to Siman Nun Zayin. So as you see over there, the Alter Rebbe holds like that. But it doesn't explain to you how. So you turn to page 100, which is Siman Nun Zayin. What is over there? Shtaris for Minui Soifer and Eidim to write a get for a Meshumad, for a Mumur. On the sixth line of the first shtar on page 100, which is the Zichrin Dvorim that the Eidim, which is what the guy writes, what he says in front of the Eidim, and the Eidim sign that that's what he said. After he says, because the Sefer was there, talking about the Minui Sefer was Befanov. Soon we're going to see how the Tzemach Tzedek is medayik. But the Minui Sefer was Befanov. B'fnei Eidim, the Sefer was there. Elamai, he tells the Sefer as follows. After he tells him, you should write, he says, Oich bet ich dich, as du sollst beten, from mein Wegen, you should go and you should ask in my name, in Liadi, when you go back to Liadi, Shnei Eidim, two Eidim, Plainim and Plainim and Plainim and Plainim, Azei zolom chasmen and zich them get, Hana, Lishmei, Lishmei, Hashem Gerushin. They should be the ones to sign the get. I'm asking you, the Sefer, that when you get back to Liadi, you should tell Plainim and Plainim, Plainim and Plainim, that they should do it. Imru, clear Imru. Azoi v'ich schreib zu sehen, I get us. Just like I'm going to write to them in a note. And on the next page, you have the note that he wrote to the Eidim that I'm asking you guys to sign the get. So there's Imru. There's also a written note to them. And there's a few things that could be learned from this. First of all, Mokim Igun, Omer Imru for Eidim works. But the Omer Imru is he tells them, ask them in my name. He says their names, and he also appoints them in a note. But he did not appoint the Edom Shalei B'fneihem. He didn't go and say he didn't come in front of Edom and say, I'm appointing planning Liyadi to sign. He could have done that. Minui Edom Shalei B'fneihem. No, he's Mimane the Shliach B'fanov, and he tells the Shliach, you go and tell the Edom to sign. Why did Alter Rebbe rely on it? The Tzemach Tzedek. And for whatever reason, also I forgot to put these Tzemach Tzedeks over here, Siman Taf Mem through Taf Mem Daled, but they're all very short ones, so I'm just going to point out to you each one what it is, and I'm going to summarize for you the pointers that the Tzemach Tzedek says. In Siman Taf Mem, the Tzemach Tzedek copies all these shtaris that you see over here in Siman Zayin, and Siman Taf Mem and Even Ezer, Tzemach Tzedek copies all these shtaris. And afterwards he adds one paragraph. The paragraph starts by Dira Maschen Nidoin. And he's medayik. He says, from this nusach, it's clear that the tzivui of writing, that a written tzivui, the tzattel, only works for Edom, Edich Simeh, not for a sefer. Why? The sefer has to hear directly from the Baal. That's why the sefer was there. Why does it help for Edom? It does not help for the sefer, because those that hold that an appointment shaloi b'fanav to the sefer doesn't work, they hold that it's mamish batel. The Rishonim which hold that the minui shaloi b'fanav by a sefer, they hold it's mamish batel. So that Alter Rebbe was not going to play around with a batel. It's midiraisa. But those that hold that appointing Edom shaloi b'fneihem doesn't work, they only hold it's masim midrabanan.
Who's those? The Ramban? Who's those that hold?
The Ramban, yeah.
But didn't Alter Rebbe finish off the long Shuvah, whatever? He said that the Bechmul didn't see the Ramban inside.
But that's for din of shluchas. But we don't have the conclusion of the Alter Rebbe. We don't know what happened afterwards. And therefore, Tzemach Tzedek says that's why the Alter Rebbe did not tell the husband to write a letter to the sefer, but to the Edom, yeah. But writing a letter to the Edom is not enough. You need also Imru. Why? Why do you need both? Because saying Imru for the Edom to sign, according to the Bishmul, it's only possible with the Sefer. Why? Because La Halacha we pass can Edom Mesira Karsi, not Edich Simeh. La Halacha is the Machlekes and Gemara Edich Simeh, Edom Mesira Karsi, which is the one that effectuated divorce, and La Halacha is Edom Mesira. So therefore Edich Simeh is only there to make the shtar better. And therefore, their all appointment is mainly midrabanan. So therefore, if their appointment is not good, it can't be more than a derabanan. And even though even though there are those that disagree with the Bishmul, and they hold that even by Edich Sim it's a chashash midiraisa, it's clear that Alter Rebbe didn't hold like them, because otherwise he would passel Imru by Edom also. He holds like the Bishmul. And he says that's pretty clear that that's how the Alter Rebbe holds in the long tshuva. But regarding the sefer, no, that's too much to say Imru for the sefer. So for the Edom, they get a letter and they get Imru. The sefer has to be b'fanav. Why? Because by a sefer it becomes a chashash deraisa. That's a Siman Taf Mem. In Siman Taf Mem Aleph, it's another version of this tshuva, and again it quotes in the Nuschos of the Shtaris, and at the end he says that he adds another point. He says that the Alter Rebbe did not bring this up, but he says he wants that the sefer should also have a zettel signed by Edom, that the husband also appointed the Edom b'fneim, in addition to the telling Omer Imru to the Edom to sign, and in addition to the letter written to the Edom, should have another document that the Edom say that the husband appointed the Edom Shalei b'fneim in front of this two Edom. But this is not, he says, it's not in the Nusach of the Alter Rebbe. But he says, I want to add that, it's better if you could add that also. And Siman Taf Mem Beis explains as follows. Alter Rebbe Dafka wanted that the sefer should hear from the Baal. First point, the sefer has to hear directly from the Baal, in front of the Edom, not indirectly. Memane Edom, this is Taf Mem Beis. Memane Edom Shalei b'fneim works. How? By telling the sofer to tell them in his name that they should write. That means it's Emru, Bishmi, Ploini ben Ploini should write. Should sign, to the Eidim to sign. But that's not enough without an attached letter to it. That the Mumur himself writes with his handwriting, I'm asking the two Eidim to sign. Number 4, this heter is only b'shasat chagadol. But if it's possible, obviously the Sofer and the Eidim have to hear direct. Even by a Mumur, the Sofer and the Eidim should hear directly from the Baal. And Siman Tov Mem Gimel, the Tzemach Tzedek writes the nusach of the minui. Now, I just want to point out, being that we have this whole discussion about Eidich Simme, that by Omer Imru, Eidich Simme is by Omer Imru, Eidich Simme, it's possible, or that's why, and the Alter Rebbe is a little bit more makel over here by Omer Imru, by Eidim. There's a book that you have, there's a book downstairs, you also have it it's called Kovetz Al Yad, from Rabbi Yirmiyahu Benyowitz, the Bezdin of Gitin in Baltimore. And he has 2 halakim. First chelik covers Ilchas Gitin until Siman Kuf Chavtes, and second chelik from Kuf Lamed till the end. So in chelik Aleph, he has like a shtickle pirush, a running pirush on this, on the Shulchan Aruch. And he has 2 parts of the pirush. He has what he calls Kovetz Al Yad, the main pirush, like a simple pirush, and then he has Yadayim Uchichos, which is like more in-depth. So over there, and on this Sa'if, he has the Ha'arech Chavtes. He brings what the Beis Shmuel says, that Omer Imru by Ksiva, the get is bottom with the Raisa, and Omer Imru by Chsima, the get is only possible with the Rabbanan. And on that, he puts a note in Sifkot New Test. He says, I don't get it. Why is it possible, B'chol? I don't understand. He says, I don't understand why it's possible. He leaves the question. I don't understand why it's possible. And he says, Lu Yitzur, there's going to be Eidim, which are going to sign on the get. And they were never appointed to sign on the get. They weren't even told from the Baal to sign the get. Or the Eidim signed and it wasn't Lishma. Lishma Shem Gerishin. The get is only possible mitam gzeira. The get, halacha, the get will only be possible mitzat gzeira. Over here, by Omer Imru, it's also, you say it's possible mitzat gzeira. What's the gzeira? That maybe the Sofer is going to sign together with maybe the Eidim are going to sign. The Eidim that are going to sign are not the ones that the husband appointed. That's the Gzeira. Because the husband wanted these 2 and in the end it's going to be Sofer v'Eid. We're going to sign. We already know that even that's only going to make it possible. So you have a Gzeira, it's possible because of a Gzeira, maybe you're going to make it possible. So it's a very shvach Gzeira. It's a very shvach kolish. Mela by writing, you have a whole you have a shaila. Maybe the writing is not going to be properly done.
By the
By the Sefer, but by Eidim, it's not going.
The Sefer agrees. It makes sense to me. By the Sefer, he says.
Yeah, by Eidim, he says it makes no sense. He says, and even more so when you appoint befeirush the names of the husband of the Sefer and the Eidim. You don't have this chashash, there can be other people that he doesn't want him to sign. And he leaves it at tzarechiyah. So he questions the whole premise of this. So, the reason I'm mentioning is just you should have it in the back of your mind. Like, you're learning the Alter Rebbe, you suddenly think of it, the Alter Rebbe is coming to being very makel. The Alter Rebbe is makel in the Eidim. He's not makel in the Eidim. Logically, it doesn't make sense why Omer Imru by Eidim should be possible. I just brought you somebody else who holds that way. You don't need him to support the Alter Rebbe, but just there to have it in the back of your mind. Now, if you want to,
I really get it. If you really have Eidim that are signing, that the guy told the Sefer, you should that those people just be the Eidim?
No, because they didn't want to send the get across town. So what happened? The Mumur was in the shtetl. The Sefer traveled to him with the Eidim, with Eidei to hear him, and he gave him the minui. But there's no Yidden in that shtetl where the Mumur lived, so you can't write a get over there. Yeah, or there's no river or whatever it is. They have to go back to Liadi to write the get, and over there give it directly to the wife. And the wife probably appointed a shlech lekabbalah also, because that's usually what you do by a Mumur. And so those 2 Eidim were not going to be the ones to sign it. If you would have appointed them to be the ones to sign it, then you're going to need another 2 people there, because they can't be the Eidim to hear that they're being appointed as Eidim. You need 5 people in the room, not 2, not 3. Sometimes you scare a person off by having 6 people in the room. 3 they can still handle. But 6 is already too much. There is a book called Shalas Tshuvas Maharash Lublin. It's in Hebrew books. It was printed once in Tafshin Amches, and it's about half of the book is Maharash Lublin, and it's also Netzra Chachma, and the other is just like randoms from the Rishonim, from the beginning of the Achronim, from the same generation as Maharash Lublin. And you have interesting Sidrei Gitin over there, etc. Over there, in page Shin Mem Zayin through Shin Mem Tes, you have a tshuva from Rav Morar Yehuda Av Bezdin Kalish. He was a Baal Mechaber Sefer Beis Yehuda Rivan al Hashas. And it's a tshuva regarding a get that was read, a story from 400 years ago. 400 years about. A husband came and said Imru in front of Bezdin. But the way he said it in Yiddish over there, it seems like he didn't mamish say Imru. He tells the Bezdin, it seemed like he wanted the Bezdin to appoint a Sofer and Eidim. But he didn't clearly appoint. There's no clear Imru. There's no clear Minui. And he goes into a whole discussion what's better over here. And it's a Mokim Igun. Is it better to take it as an Imru? Or is it better that the 3 Dayanim who heard it should then go and one should write and the other 2 should sign the get? Not according to the people who are Poisel Imru. According to the people who are Matir Imru. What's better? Because he says, could be that even, he writes over the Svara, could be that even when you say Imru, and the people who are Poisel and Imru is because Shema Yetze Churva, right? He brings a Svara that Shema Yetze Churva is only an issue when the husband says who he wants as Sefer and Eidim. Why? Because then they might change from what the husband said. You're going to have a problem with the get. But if Omer, Imru, and the Sefer and the Eidim are not named, maybe it's better. Over here, they were not named. Maybe Omer, Imru, and the Sefer and the Eidim were not named, it would be much better. Because then there's no churva could come out of it. What's the most thing that could happen by Omer, Imru if he doesn't say the names? There's no churva because anybody they appoint, the husband is fine with. He didn't tell them any names. He's not changing who it is. You don't have to be embarrassing the sefer that he's not signing, that the husband doesn't want him to sign the get, so you don't have that churva either. All you have is a shaila if the minui works or not. If it's a minui or it's not a minui, if it's a clear minui. So he says, because over here, he said it to the Bezdin, and it wasn't the clear imru. He goes, the whole discussion, whether it's better that the Bezdin, I think the maskana over there is it's better that the Bezdin should write it. The Bezdin should learn how to do it, but he brings these svaras, which these svaras, when you look at them, completely change the whole view of the sugya. That maybe Imru Stam is better than the Imru with names, and maybe those that heard it in the room are better than the people who are appointed. Which that fits again to what the Alter Rebbe writes, that if the Sofer was there in the room and he's the one that heard the Imru, that's better, the Alter Rebbe writes, that's better than Minui Shliach Shalei B'fanav. And if you have time, spend some time looking at it and you will enjoy it. It's not such a long tshuva and the space between the lines is pretty big, so it's not going to take you too much time to learn it.